I thank the Almighty Creator of heaven, earth and sea for the great mercy and compassion which, among the savage people of the country Brazil, called the Tupinimba, who ate men, and whose prisoner I was for 9 months, and amidst many other dangers I am again safe in the Grand Duchy of Hesse, my much beloved fatherland. Hans Staden from Homburg in Hesse had resolved, if it should so please God, to visit India. I travelled to a city called Seville, where I found 3 ships fitting out to sail to a country called Rio de Plata in America. This region, with the rich gold country named Pirau, which was discovered some years ago, and Brazil, all form one continent. To conquer this land forthwith, several ships had been sent some years before, and one of them, returning home, requested more assistance, saying how rich it was in gold. San Vicente was an island which lies close to the mainland. The Portuguese who live therein have for allies a tribe of Brazilians who are called the Tupiniquim, but this tribe had on both sides enemies, on the south side and also the north side. Having sent my slave the day before into the wood to catch game, I purposed going the next day to fetch it, so that we might have something to eat. For in that country one has little else beyond what comes from forests. Now, as I with this purpose walked through the woods, there arose on both sides of the path loud yells, such as the savages are accustomed to make, and they came running towards me. I noticed them, but found that they had all surrounded me, and levelling their bows and arrows they shot in upon me. I cried, "God help my soul!" I had scarcely finished saying these words when they struck me to the ground and shot arrows and stabbed at me. So far they had not, thank God, wounded me further than in one leg and torn my clothes off my body. 2 of them raised me from the ground where I lay naked. One took me by one arm, another by the other, and some went behind me and others before. They ran in this manner quickly through the wood towards the sea. I sighted their canoes from which they had drawn up from the sea, at the distance of about a stone's throw or 2, and also a great number more of them who had remained with the canoes. When they, ornamented with feathers according to their custom, saw me being led along, they ran towards me, and pretended to bite into their arms, and threatened as though they would eat me. Before they launched the canoe, they tied my hands together, and not being all from the same dwelling place, those of each village were loath to go home empty-handed, and disputed with those who held me. Some said that they had been just as near me as the others, and that they would also have their share of me, and they wanted to kill me at once on that very spot. And so I stood and prayed, looking round for the blow. But at last their king, who desired to keep me, began to speak, and said they would take me living homewards, so that their wives might also see me alive, and make their feast upon me. For they purposed killing me kawewi pepike, that is, they would brew drinks and assemble together to make a feast. And only then they would eat me. This video is sponsored by Magellan TV. Question: how many people lived in the Americas when Columbus arrived in 1492? A. 3.2 million. B. 15 million. C. 60 million. Yes, the answer, according to a recent study, is 60 million, although that is hotly debated, and just over a century later had dropped to 5 million. And so, my recommendation this week is one of Magellan's new documentaries, which they add every week. Rio the Great Saga is a fascinating journey back in time to explore the rich history of Rio de Janeiro, a crossroads of colonial history and political and social revolutions. An amazing slice of Brazil's rich history. And of course, Magellan have more than 3,000 other documentaries already on their system to check out too. And this Christmas, Voices of the Past viewers can take advantage of a special holiday offer. A buy one, get one free gift card for an annual membership by clicking on the link in the description. Thanks. When we arrived close to their dwellings, these proved to be a village which had 7 huts, and they called it Uwatibi. and close to it were their women in the plantations of the root which they call mandioca. In this said plantation walked many of the women pulling up roots. To these I was made to call out in their language, Adruneske bin ermi vrame. That is, your food has come. Now when we landed, all young and old ran out of their huts, which lay on a hill, to look at me. The men with their bows and arrows entered the huts and left me in the custody of their women, who took me between them and went along, some before me and others behind, singing and dancing in unison, with the songs which they are accustomed to sing to their own people when they are about to eat them. Now they brought me before the Iwara huts. As I entered, the women ran to me and struck me with their fists and pulled my beard and spoke in their language, "With this blow I revenge my friend, him whom those among whom thou hast been has killed." Thereupon they led me into the huts, whilst the women came and struck and pulled me before and behind and threatened me how they would eat me. All the men were together in a hut and drank the beverage which they called kawi, and had with them their gods called Tamerka, and they sang in praise of them. This song I heard, and I thought, now they prepare to kill thee. After a little while, those who had captured me, named Yepipo Wasu and his brother Alkindar Miri, came to me and told me how they had, from friendship, presented me to their father's brother, Iperu Wazu, who was to keep me, and also to kill me when I was to be eaten, and thus to gain a new name with me. Further, the two above mentioned who had taken me said, "Now will the women lead thee out to the Aprasi." This word I understood not then, but now I know it means dancing. Then came all the women who were in the 7 huts and seized hold of me, and the men went away. Several of the women led me along by the arms, and several by the ropes which were bound around my neck so roughly and tightly that I could hardly breathe, and I knew not what they intended to do with me, upon which I tried to remember the sufferings of our Lord Jesus Christ, and how he suffered innocently, whereby I consoled myself and became more resigned. I asked whether they were going to kill me then, when they answered, "Not yet." Upon which a woman came out from the crowd towards me, holding a fragment of crystal, and with this same piece of crystal shaved off my eyebrows, and would also have cut the beard from my chin, but this I would not suffer, and said that they should kill me with my beard. 2 women were with me, and they tied to one of my legs strings of objects, which rattled. Thereupon the womankind all began together to sing, and to their time I was obliged to stamp with their leg to which they had tied the rattles, so that they rattled in harmony. Eventually I was handed over to Ipero Wasu, who kept me in careful custody. He told me that I still had some time to live, and they brought all their gods that were in the huts and placed them round me, and said that those had prophesied that they would capture a Portuguese. Then said I, "These things have no power and also cannot speak, and they lie in asserting that I am Portuguese. For I am one of the Frenchmen's allies and friends, and the country where I am at home, to which I belong, is called Germany." They knew full well that the Frenchmen were just as much the enemies of the Portuguese as they, for the Frenchmen came every year with ships and brought them knives, axes, looking-glasses, combs, and scissors. Therefore they were good friends, which the Portuguese had not been. They further said that the Portuguese had shot the father of the 2 brothers who had captured me, in such manner that he died, and that they would now revenge their father's death on me. Thereupon I asked, why would they revenge upon me? I was not Portuguese. Having come to understood that there were Frenchmen among them, and that these were accustomed to arrive there in ships, I always persisted in the same story, and said that I belonged to the allies of the French, and that they were to let me remain unkilled until some time as the Frenchmen came and recognized me. There was a Frenchman living 4 miles distant from the huts where I was. Now, when he heard the news, he proceeded thither. Then the savages came running towards me and said, "Now a Frenchman has arrived here. We shall soon see if you are a Frenchman or not." Of course, I felt glad of that, and I thought, at all events, he is a Christian, and he will say everything for the best. They took me in to him, naked as I was, and I saw that he was a young fellow. He addressed me in French, and I, of course, understood him not. The savages stood round and listened. When I could not reply, he said to the savages in their language, "Kill and eat him. He is a true Portuguese, my enemy and yours." This I understood well. I begged him, therefore, for God's sakes, that he would tell them not to eat me. And he said, "They want to eat you." Upon which I remembered the words of Jeremiah, who says, "Cursed is he who putteth his trust in man." The above-mentioned Frenchman remained 2 days, and on the 3rd day he went on his way. And they had agreed that they would prepare everything and kill me on the 1st day after they had collected all things together. And they watched me very carefully, and both young and old mocked and derided me. Now, when I came close upon the huts, I heard a great noise of singing and blowing of horns, and in front of the huts were fixed some 15 heads on stakes. These belonged to a tribe whom they had eaten. As they led me past them, they told me they were the heads from the Marquesas, who were also their enemies. As we were entering the huts, one of these, who had me in their keeping, went before me and spoke with loud words, so that the others heard it. "Here I bring the slave, the Portuguese." He then led me to where the king sat and drank together with the others, and had made themselves drunk with the beverage that they make, called kawawi. The king looked savagely at me, and said, "Our enemy, art thou come?" Then they gave me also to drink. At this point, the king's son tied my legs together in 3 places, and I was made to hop with joined feet through the huts. At this they laughed and said, "There comes our meat, hopping along." Upon this I asked my master whether he had led me thither to be killed. He said, "No, it was the custom that foreign slaves were treated in this manner." Thereupon they walked around me and grabbed at my flesh. One said the skin of the head belonged to him, and another that he claimed the fleshy part of the leg. But my master always comforted me, saying that I was not to be killed for the present. About eventide on the day when the others had again gone off, and by moonlight, they assembled together on the open space between the huts, and debated among one another when they would kill me. Placing me also between them, they derided and threatened me. I was sad, and looked at the moon and thought to myself, "My Lord and my God, assist me through this peril to a peaceful end." Then they asked me why I so constantly looked at the moon. So I said to them, "I see by her aspect that she is angry." For the face which is in the moon appeared even to me to be so terrible that I thought to myself, God and all creatures must be angry with me. But thereupon the king, who was to have me killed, called Jepipu Wasu, asked me, "With whom is the moon angry?" So I said, "She looks towards thy huts." After several days, they all came home together, sick. Jepipo ordered me to be led to the huts and told me how they had been stricken with illness, and that I had well known it, for he still remembered that I had said the moon looked angrily towards his huts. When I heard these words from him, I thought to myself, surely it must be through God's providence that I, last night, as aforesaid, spoke about the moon. I was in great joy at this, and I thought, today God is with me. And so I told him that it was true, because he wanted to eat me though I was not his enemy, and therefore had misfortune come upon him. Upon which he said that nothing should happen to me if it turned out that he recovered. I knew not how best to pray to God, and thought, if they regain health, they will yet kill me, but if they die, the others will say, let us kill him before more misfortune happens on this account. So I submitted the matter to God. Jipipo begged me hard that they might again recover. I walked round them and laid my hands upon their heads as they desired me to do. But God would not have it so. They began to die. First died one of their children, then his mother died, an old woman who was baking the pots wherein were to be made the beverages with which I was to be eaten. She also died. After some days one of his brothers died, then another child, and another brother, and so on. Now, when he saw that his children, his mother, and his brothers were gone, he feared much that he and his wives would also die. He said that I was to tell my God to withdraw his anger, so that he might live. I, of course, comforted him, and told him there was no danger, but that when he recovered again, he was not to think of killing me. Thereupon he answered, no, and also commanded those in the huts that nobody should injure me, or threaten to eat me. He nevertheless remained ill for a time, but he was at last restored to health, together with one of his wives, who was also ill. There died, however, about 8 of his friends, besides others, who had treated me cruelly. Now there were yet 2 other kings from 2 other huts. One had dreamt that I appeared before him and had told him that he was to die. I said, no, he was not to be afraid, but that he also was not to think of killing me, or advise others to do it. In like manner, the other king had also dreamt of me, a dream which had terrified him much, and he called me to his hut and then complained of it to me, and said he had once been to war and had captured a Portuguese and had killed him with his own hands, and had eaten of him so plentifully that his chest or stomach had ever since been delicate, and he declared that he would eat of no other. Him also I bade to be of good cheer, but he was to take care never to eat human flesh again. Thus they left me alone for a while, not knowing quite what to make of me, whether I was a Portuguese or a Frenchman. They said I had a red beard, like a Frenchman, and though they had also seen Portuguese, yet these had all black beards. And so, when the Frenchman came again to the huts, he spoke to me in the savage tongue, and at that time I went about unfettered. Then he asked me if I still lived, and I said yes. I thanked God that he had preserved me for so long, and I called him privately to a spot where the savages could not hear what I said, and told him that he saw plainly that God had preserved my life, but also that I was no Portuguese, but a German, and I asked if he had not a Christian heart in his bosom, or had thought that after this life there was no other, when he had strongly advised that I should be killed. And so, according to my request, he told the savages that he had not well recognized me the first time, but that I was from Germany and belonged to their friends, and that he wanted to take me with him to where the ships generally arrived. My masters said no, they would not give me up, for they had found me in the enemy's country, and I belonged to them. It happened after several days that they wanted to eat a prisoner in a village nearby, about 6 miles from where I lay imprisoned. On the eve of this day, when they intended drinking to his death, I went to him and said to him, "Everything is prepared for thy death." He laughed, and he said, "Yes." Further, I told him he was to be of good cheer, for they would only eat his flesh, but his soul would proceed to another place, whither our countrymen's souls also proceeded, and where there was much happiness. He then asked me if this was really true. I said, yes. But, quoth he had never seen God. And I said, he would see him in the next life. There was one more incident before I escaped. Now among them was a slave belonging to a tribe called the Carrio, who are also enemies of the savages that are friends of the Portuguese. So it happened, about the year 1554, during the 6th month of my captivity, that the Carrio fell sick, and his master who owned him begged me to help him that he might be well again and catch game, bringing something for us to eat. But that if I thought he would not recover again, he would give him to a good friend, who might kill him and gain a name by him. I tried, but finally they said, he will die. We will therefore, before he dies, strike him dead. I said, no, do not do this, he may perhaps recover. But it availed not. They dragged him before the huts, and 2 of them held him, for he was so sick that he knew not what they were going to do with him. And so came the one whom he had been given to kill, and struck him on the head, so that the brain sprang out. Then they left him lying before the huts, and wished to eat him. I told them not to do this, as he had been sick, and they might also fall ill. Therefore they knew not what to do. But one of them came out the hut wherein I was, and called to the women to make a fire near the dead man, and he cut his head off. Then he cut him up and divided him equally with the others, as is their custom, and ate him all but the head and bowels, of which they had a loathing, as the man had been sick. I went now and again through the different huts. In one they broiled the feet, in another the hands, and in a third pieces of the trunk. Then I told them how the Carrio whom they were broiling and were going to eat had at all times lied against me, and had said that I had shot several of their friends when I was with the Portuguese, and in this he had lied, and he had never seen me. You know well, I continued, that he was several years among you, and never was ill. But now, on account of the lies which he told about me, my God has become angry, and has stricken him with sickness, and has put into your minds that you should kill him and eat him. So will my God do unto all wicked men who have worked me harm, and who would further injure me. At such words, they were much terrified. It happened that one day some savages came to me and said that they had heard a firing, which must be at Itoron, the harbour also called Rio de Janeiro. Hearing with certainty that a ship was there, I told them that they were to take me to it, as probably my brothers would be there. Eventually, the news was brought to me by the savages that 2 men from the ship had arrived there. I was overjoyed and went to them and bade them welcome in the savage tongue. When they saw me in such a wretched plight, they had pity upon me and divided their garments with me. I asked them why they had come. They answered, on my account, as they had been commanded to take me to the ship, and to effect this they were to use every means. And so I said to one of the 2, who knew the language of the savages, that he had to feign the following. He was to be my brother, and he was to make believe that I would remain among them and collect pepper and other produce until the ships returned the next year. About 10 sailors who in some degree resembled me should come together and state that they were my brothers and wanted to carry me home with them. My false brothers should in no way consent that I should again return to the huts, but declare that I should return home, for our father wished to see me once again before he died. And so the captain told the savages that he was the captain of the ship, and was desirous that I should go back to the huts, but that he was only one man and my brothers were many, he could not do anything against them. These pretexts were all made in order to part on good terms with the savages. And so the king went weeping about the ship and said if they really wanted to take me with them, I was to return with the first ship, for he had considered me now his son, and was very angry with the others for wanting to eat me. And one of his wives, who was then with him on board the ship, had to cry over me after their custom, and I also cried, according to their usage. And so, in such manner did the Almighty God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, help me out of the hands of the tyrants. To him be praise, honour, and glory, through Jesus Christ, his dear Son, our Saviour. Amen.